Hello, my lovely, lovely friends from YouTube. Last week, I actually trimmed my hair myself from home, and I thought I would make a video, like a tutorial, explaining how I did it and giving you all my tips on how to, cut curly, natural hair from home. Last week, though, I really wasn't in the mood to be recording a video. Like, you need to be in the right mood to record videos, otherwise, the vibe is going to be off. But I knew I had to record it because I knew this is really valuable content for you guys. This is the kind of video that I wish I had, because this would have saved me potentially lots of money at the hairdressers and a lot of really bad, terrible haircuts. I don't know about you guys, but I live in Melbourne, and regular hairdressers here, they just don't know how to cut curly hair. They just can't cut my hair. Like, they just don't know how to do it. And there's very few salons here in Melbourne that can actually cut really curly hair. Like, they specialize in curly hair. And I've had my hair cut at one of the salons once, and yeah, that's kind of how I learned to do it. I kind of watched how they were doing it, and that's how I learned. That's how I did it last week as well. So yeah, I'm just going to go over some tips and show you some of the footage that I took last week that I'm going to put on top of this video, and just go over the tips for you guys so that you can also cut your hair at home, potentially save you lots of money from the hairdressers. First of all, the tip that I've got here is to cut your hair while it's dry and when it's in its shrunken form. So, you guys know, if you have really curly hair, textured hair, you know that when we wet our hair, it tends to look longer, it tends to lengthen because it's being weighed down by the water. And if you cut your hair on wet hair, you're actually not really going to be able to see the length of your hair because it is being lengthened and stretched out by the water. So there's two reasons as to why you want to cut it on dry hair. First of all, so that you can see the length, the actual length that your hair is going to be once it's dried and shrunk. You want to be able to see that length because this is how you're going to be wearing your hair. This is what your hair is going to be like majority of the time, right? So in order to see how much hair you're cutting, it's best to cut it on dry hair. The other reason as to why you want to cut it dry is because it's easier to get a very clean cut. If you try to cut your hair while it's wet, you're not actually going to get that, clean cut at your ends. And if you don't get a clean cut, you're going to increase the surface area at your ends, and that's not good because the more surface area at your ends that you have is more exposure to stuff like friction, wind, the weather, etc., and that can increase like damage onto your hair and split ends. So cutting it on dry hair, much better than cutting it on wet hair. I want to demonstrate what happens when you cut your hair while it's still wet. So this here is a dry piece of paper, and I'm just gonna try to cut just a straight line, and this is what I get, just a sharp clean cut. But so I've had this piece of paper here soaking in here for about, I'd say, 10 minutes. Okay, because when you're washing your hair, that's for how long your hair is wet for, sometimes even longer. So imagine you're washing your hair, you're shampooing it, you're rinsing it, you're applying conditioner, you're waiting, like you're letting it sit for a bit. Your hair's been wet and soaking that water and absorbing water for at least 15-20 minutes. So this has been sitting in the water for I think 10 minutes ago I've put that in. But if I'm trying to cut a straight line, it's a lot harder. Okay, so it's a lot more difficult to get that clean, sharp, cut when your hair is wet. A lot of hairdressers cut hair on wet hair, and I've tried to Google that before. I tried to find out why do hairdressers do that. And what I found was that obviously hairdressers don't want to be cutting your hair when there's a lot of product in it, because the product, kind of add thickness to your hair and stuff like that. So they want to be cutting your hair while it's clean, when there's not a lot of product in it. And they want to be cutting your hair when it's in its most natural form, I suppose. But, that doesn't stop the hairdressers from, washing your hair and then drying it first and then cutting. But often you'd find that they wash your hair, the hair's still wet, and they are literally just cutting it on wet hair. And I believe a reason for that is because, first of all, if they had to dry your hair and then cut it, it's going to take a lot longer. So it just adds an additional step. And secondly, it's actually a lot easier to cut hair when it's wet because the hair clumps together. So it's actually really easy when all the hair are clumped together to just, cut it. If they wash your hair and then they dry it and there's no product in your hair is going to be very separated. Each hair strand is going to be very separated. And that makes it difficult to actually cut hair. So I'm guessing there are benefits to, washing the hair, removing the products before cutting it. But at the same time, cutting it on wet hair is not ideal. It's much better, especially for curly hair. It's much better to cut it on dry, completely dried hair. Next tip is to cut your hair when you still have curl definition and when your hair is not too tangled. So it kind of depends here on how you actually normally style your hair. But for me, I usually have my hair in a wash and go. Currently, this is my hair in a wash and go, but it's still wet right now. But yeah, most of the time, like literally 99% of the time, I have my hair in a wash and go, and my hair is really, really curly. It's like the curls are really defined. So for me, the best time to cut my hair would be probably on day 3 of my wash and go. Day 3, because number one, it's dry, completely dry already. Number 2 is the curls have already had time to kind of settle into their natural um, pattern, I suppose, because day 1 of my wash and go, the curls are a little bit still crunchy from the products that I've used, from the gel that I've used. But by day 3, the curls are a little bit more loose. I've still got the curl definition, but the curls are a lot more loose compared to day 1. And day 3 is basically when my hair is in its most, I guess, natural form. So day 3 for me is the best time for me to cut it. But also, it's not really tangled that much on day 3. If I wait, 7 days after I've washed my hair is going to be really, really matted and really tangled up. And then it's going to make it a lot harder to cut my hair when it's very tangled. So day 3 for me is perfect, but obviously it's going to just depend on your hair. For some people, it might be day 2, some people might be day 4. But yeah, you generally want to cut it when it's dry, when it still has its curl definition. So the hair is still clumped together, and when it's not too tangled, because you're gonna have to separate the hair as well and cut it into little section. And if your hair is really, really tangled, it's gonna make it a lot harder. And also, in the process of trying to separate the hair and detangle it, you might then break the curl pattern and also stretch your hair in the process, which is gonna make cutting it a lot harder. So yeah, what I'm trying to say here, just cut it on a day when there's still a lot of curl definition in your hair, when the curls are still clumped together, and when it's not too tangled, basically. Tip number 3 is to use sharp shears. So you need to use scissors that have been designed for hair, not just regular scissors. And the scissors need to be sharp as well. And that comes down to getting this clean cut that I was telling you about before. Like, you want to get a clean cut at the ends to minimize that surface area. So the scissors that I'm using are hair scissors, like they are shears that I got from Amazon a long time ago, and they are very, very sharp. I can tell you that because I accidentally cut my finger, like, yeah. So scissors that I'm using are very sharp, and that allows me to get a very clean cut at my ends. Tip number 4 is to cut your hair perpendicular. So imagine your hair strand being vertical. You want to angle the scissors so that the scissors are horizontal and the scissors and your hair are making like a right angle. And you want to do that because when you cut that way, you're going to minimize surface area as well. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate with some strips of paper how this works. So imagine your hair strand being this strip of paper, and you cut perpendicular to the direction of your hair. So your hair's running downwards and you cut straight down. This here, that's the surface area at your ends, right? But if you're cutting on an angle, at an angle, say you have your scissors angle that way and you cut, okay, that is your surface area. And look at the difference in terms of surface area between the two. So this has a lot more surface area exposed compared to this one here. So this strand here, this hair strand here, is more likely to develop split ends because there's more exposure to, you know, things like friction and just the environment. So this is more likely to experience damage compared to this one here because there's less surface area here. There's more surface area with this one. Some hairdressers cut hair, you know, on an angle. They like, you know, angle the scissors and, you know, they cut like that. And, you know, you want to avoid that because this is going to increase surface area at your ends. Okay, that is actually it. I've only got 4 tips. I think this should cover everything that you need to know about cutting hair, and hopefully these tips along with the footage of, you know, the footage that I'm showing you as well is going to be helpful, and hopefully now you feel more confident cutting your hair yourself at home. And yeah, happy cutting. I'll see you in the next video.